Hey everyone, and welcome to the Boost Your Biology podcast. My name is Lucas, and I'm the founder of Ergogenic Health. Together in this podcast series, we will go underground to explore cutting-edge health and human performance insights that you simply cannot search on Google to help you upgrade your existence. So, without any further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Could we consider Noopept as one of the strongest nootropics on the market? What I'll do is break down the benefits of Noopept, a peptide-based nootropic that can be utilized to improve focus, memory, attention, and also reduce anxiety. So what is Noopept? Well, Noopept is a memory enhancer, also known as a nootropic, which also protects against cognitive decline. Now, it's a nootropic substance of the peptide class, and it's promoted and prescribed in Russia and neighboring countries as a nootropic with powerful neuroprotective properties. Now, interestingly, Noopept is also recognized as an anti-anxiety and mood-enhancing drug. Now, beyond this, there are lots of other positive effects of Noopept, such as increased focus, better energy levels, and also better concentration. So I do really want to highlight that I will be leaving a link to a high quality Noopept. This is the one that I personally used for my own experimentation purposes. And I'll also be sharing my own experimentation in further detail. Interestingly, with Noopept, these benefits become even better in the longer term and may even have some slight psychostimulatory effects. Now, Noopept is the most sought after peptide-derived nootropic and is closely related to the racetam family. So I'm sure many of you are probably familiar with the racetam substance family, or the racetam family of substances. We're looking at piracetam, oxiracetam, coliracetam, phasораcetam, phenylpiracetam, pramiracetam. There are many different types of racetam-based nootropics. Noopept is considered to be many more times more potent than piracetam, which is the original nootropic that was first established. I guess we can look at Noopept as something that we can utilize, yet another awesome nootropic or a cognitive enhancing substance that can basically give yourself that edge at work or during studies, and can also help you stay alert and focused while giving you that boost in a safe and sustainable way. Now, interestingly, Noopept is an unregulated supplement, and it's basically legal for anyone to buy, which makes it a very popular choice. So I want to break down my experience using Noopept at 30 milligrams per day for 7 days. Now, obviously this experiment was quite a short duration, but since I've been so busy with travels and, recording podcasts and doing other business ventures, lots of consulting and formulating, I was only able to run this experiment for 7 days. Obviously this is not really long enough to really gauge the effects, but I'm quite in tune with my body, and I'm pretty quickly able to detect any changes in my physical energy or psychology as well, or mental effects as well. So as far as the major effects that I noticed, the first and most obvious effect was actually the color saturation effect, or the HD vision effect that's noticed. So with the color saturation effect, this is quite similar to when I use St. John's wort. St. John's wort, and like many other antidepressants, when you're in a very depressed state, or you're feeling anhedonic, or you're feeling dysphoric, you perceive the world as less vibrant and actually more dull and grey. It actually can affect your color perception. And so what's interesting with Noopept, it did provide that color saturation effect. And a lot of other psychedelics can also induce this effect. So that was really interesting to see. And I think we can potentially link that to Noopept's effects on nerve growth factor. I also noticed improved verbal fluency. Sometimes when I'm in conversation with people, I tend to jump ahead, and that actually makes it more difficult to sound more fluent and, I guess, just witty and smooth with my word selection and conversation skills. And I'm sure many of you have probably noticed this, maybe when when you have a few drinks, if you drink alcohol, some other GABA-based substances that can improve verbal fluency. With Noopept, the most obvious effect here was I had more of those like tip of the tongue moments where, I had, I guess, like situations where I was easily able to find the perfect word for that conversation or in that moment. It was very easy to find, that perfect word in that particular situation. It's pretty hard to explain here on camera, but I'm sure you understand what I'm referring to. Is like just when you're completely in flow in conversation, you're really switched on and witty. That brings me to my next point, is the more witty nature of my conversational skills, like just feeling like I was really sharp and able to make connections with topics very easily, and also just be able to think sharp and really quickly, almost like 2 steps ahead. So it definitely helped with that. I also noticed slightly improved long-term recall. Obviously, I didn't undergo any Cambridge Brain Sciences tests or anything, but as far as long-term recall, I did notice that I was able to recall random dates and words and even names as a little bit better than usual. As far as the stimulatory effects, I would say that Noopept at a dosage of 30 milligrams daily is equivalent to about half a cup of coffee as far as its psychostimulatory effects, so feeling more awake and alert. I also noted much more vivid dreams. This is something that I've noticed with some of the racetams as well, so I had more vivid dreams. Also noted that I had an increased need for choline. So I basically needed to increase my egg intake to offset the likelihood of getting a headache, which is often one of the side effects of utilizing racetams, is that I needed to increase my egg intake to supply more choline. I prefer to consume, choline-rich foods over supplementing with like alpha GPC, CDP choline, because you get the protein as well. So that's another benefit there. I also noticed that I was slightly less emotional. This effect was actually quite similar to how I feel when I nuked my estrogen levels, when I deliberately took every aromatase inhibitor under the sun and I deliberately tried to suppress my estrogen as low as possible. I noticed that I became a bit more emotionless. And for example, when I would watch a movie, if something really intense or emotional would happen in the movie, to be honest, I would rather feel the pain of the character in the movie, or feel scared or horror or shock or even complete sadness than to be watching a movie feeling dull and not experiencing any of the emotions of the movie, or like not being empathetic at all. To be honest, I actually rather feel more empathetic and more emotional, particularly in those situations. So I noticed that Noopept would actually dull that effect. So how does Noopept actually even work? Well, the exact mechanisms by which Noopept affects the brain and body are largely unknown, but based on some very early studies, a few potential mechanisms have been proposed, although these will still need to be confirmed by additional research. Now, according to preliminary results from a few animal models or rat studies, some researchers have suggested that chronic intake of Noopept may contribute to increased levels of nerve growth factor and also BDNF, or brain-derived neurotrophic factor, particularly in brain areas such as the hippocampus and the hypothalamus. Now, others have proposed that Noopept may act by increasing the activity of HIF1A, which is a DNA transcription factor. However, this notion is based solely on a single study done in cells or in vitro, and so this mechanism is speculative at best. Now, early results from 2 animal studies in rats suggest that Noopept may have some effect on GABA activity, which would explain why I noticed the benefits as far as the verbal fluency effect goes in the hippocampus, which is a brain structure commonly believed to be highly involved in memory formation. And finally, one other animal study reported that Noopept increases the activity of alpha and beta brain waves throughout many areas of the brain in rats. Now, while certain brain waves such as alpha waves have sometimes been associated with cognitive functions such as alertness and attention, the wider significance of these effects actually remains unclear. So if you've ever used L-theanine, you will know what increased alpha waves feels like. I didn't really notice that effect with Noopept, like a similar effect. So I'm not sure how strong we can consider that study as translating to humans. So as far as dosages are concerned with Noopept, as a peptide, the oral bioavailability is very low, and some people like to actually insulfation and also utilize sublingual administration. But as far as the effects are concerned, I was able to notice the effects of Noopept orally, and I took it 30 milligrams orally. So that actually worked quite well. I never really noticed the short-term memory loss that a lot of people describe online. Didn't really notice any of the brain fog or irritability. It didn't affect my sleep, nor did it give me a headache, provided that I supplied my body with sufficient choline. So as I mentioned, there will be a high-quality Noopept linked. There will be a discount code as well. Obviously, using that discount code does help to support this channel. And lastly, I want to emphasize the safety aspect of Noopept. Now, the chronic use of Noopept can be considered as a non-addictive compound with a low potential for abuse, and it doesn't seem to be capable of causing psychological dependence amongst users. And for those of you who want to learn more about nootropics, be sure to check out my website. I have tons of resources. Thank you everyone for joining in to today's episode. For in-depth show notes and lessons learned, visit nofilter.media/boost your biology.
This has been a No Filter Media production.
Say what you want.